Hello and welcome to another insightful episode of our podcast series Sashakt Niveshak, Pathway to the 5 trillion economy, which is dedicated to investor awareness. This is a series of conversations with thought leaders from the Indian capital markets covering a wide range of topics. I am Shri Krishnan, Chief Business Development Officer at the National Stock Exchange of India and your host of today's podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. He is an executive director at the Securities and Exchange Board of India, managing several departments. The first one is DDHS, as we call it, the Department of Debt and Hybrid Securities. Then there's EAD, or Inquiries and Adjudication Department, the Quasi-Judicial Cell, and finally the DEPA, or Department of Economic and Policy Analysis. He was also a quasi-judicial authority. He is a member of the IFSC Authority, the Interregulatory Technical Group, IRTG, of the Subcommittee of the Financial Stability and Development Council, and a member of the Assessment Committee of IOSCO. He co-founded the LawTech Enterprise and served as a board member of two startups. In case you've still not guessed who it is Mr. Pramod. Welcome, sir. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Sir, today's podcast topic is Smart ODR, a topic in which you played a pivotal role in conceptualizing and adoption. You've also been engaging with various parts of the market ecosystem, the policymakers, government, judiciary, and so on. It'll be great if you can first provide us with an overview of the current state of dispute resolution in the securities market.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here on this podcast. And thank you, Sriram. The way I would characterize the state of affairs of dispute resolution, I think I would put it as pre-smart ODR and post-smart ODR. I think in the pre-smart ODR world, we had the stock exchanges and depositories administering a well-run, IGRC process, which is founded in principles of mediation and conciliation, as well as two-tiered arbitration process for resolution of disputes that arose between clients and brokers or clients and DPs. I think the rest of the securities market was really quite a bit of mishmash, wherein the intermediaries themselves decided which sort of dispute resolution they wanted with their clients. So it was an amalgam of court-based resolution, some which had stipulated arbitration that they appointed the arbitrator and so on. I think the desire at SEBI was to see if we could enhance the MII-administered dispute resolution and extend it to the entire securities market. And doing so, harnessing technology, which is, I think, that's why I call that the post-smart ODR world. Where indeed the entire market is now encompassed with smart ODR.
Through the circular dated 31st July 2023, SEBI has certainly taken a proactive step in enhancing dispute resolution in the Indian securities market by introducing online dispute resolution. If I may ask, sir, what prompted SEBI to explore the concept of online dispute resolution as a mechanism for investors in the Indian securities market?
So twofold sort of reaction is what I would offer. I think one, we were very keen on investors having access around the country, from across the country. And online medium became the most perfect. And I think in the aftermath of COVID, all of us have realized that actually physicality is not necessary, and really people can interact virtually as well.
This is also the best way to democratize dispute resolution.
Access to the dispute resolution process. So I think that became one big embrace on our point of saying that can it be online and can it be all India all at the same time. And second, like I said, we were building on what the MIIs had already created and established as IGRC and arbitration. But we were using it to bring uniformity amongst all other intermediaries, which had not, adopted this mechanism. So at some level, it was both one sort of pan-India reach and second uniformity within the securities market across our intermediaries.
The resolution process today, which is followed by the exchanges and the depositories, obviously after the revamp and the introduction of smart ODR, which has been developed under your guidance and supervision, uh, how do you think this is working, and what are some of the key features and functionalities of this online dispute resolution platform?
So I think there are very many features which highlight what how an efficient dispute resolution process can look like. It begins with the MIIs and namely the stock exchanges, NSE prominent amongst them, but also the depositories as well. I think coming together in establishing Smart ODR portal was, I think, the first key step. This means that there is one unified access point for investors instead of them having to go to different agencies or different places. That is one unique feature. These we also have layered, I would say, in Smart ODR 2 or 3 processes. One is pre-conciliation that the MIIs undertake. And I call pre-conciliation as free to both investor and intermediary, with the MII playing the role of maybe a guide or a philosopher in trying to say that can there be a solution to the problem posed. At the second level, if the investor is still not satisfied and it goes into conciliation process, then an ODR institution comes in, which has been empaneled by a MII, which appoints a conciliator, whose job is again to sort of arrive at consensual resolution of issues between investor and intermediary. To my mind, this sort of is to try and see if indeed people can agree on a solution, then a solution can be indeed found. Is a good way of resolving issues. If the investor is still not satisfied, it moves to the third level, which is arbitration. Again, appointed by the ODR institution, the arbitrator, who then adjudicates or sits in judgment over the issues posed by the investor and intermediary, and that award becomes a legally binding award. To me, these 3 layers and the sequence in which they progress is what the Smart ODR portal has enabled. So there is, while there is at the immediate level when the investor approaches capture of document, information, and so on. From thereafter, it becomes very seamless transmission of this information to conciliator or to arbitrator, and for the parties to be able to participate and engage. I think this has also been specified in our ODR master circular as being time bound in nature. So really, I think end to end, in less than 100 days, an investor can expect their dispute to get resolved with all of even the flexibilities given to conciliator to extend time, to arbitrator to extend time. And I think these are hallmarks, like I said, of a good, efficient, speedy dispute resolution. One key item that I want to highlight for the audience is that Smart ODR and accessing it is not sequential. One doesn't have to necessarily go to scores first and then come and utilize Smart ODR. If there is a dispute, the first whiff of that can also be used to invoke Smart ODR. Like I mentioned, the process has pre-conciliation, conciliation, and arbitration embedded in it. Each of that becomes an opportunity for the intermediary and investor at the first 2 levels to arrive at a consensual solution. And thereafter, if they are not able to, really for a binding decision to be given. So I thought I should call that out and mention it specifically.
Thank you, sir. It's a matter indeed of great pride that we are the first in the whole world to introduce online dispute resolution in the securities market. This is a huge, achievement under your thought leadership, and also, of course, the overarching, longer-term vision of SEBI as a capital markets regulator. And obviously, in India, we have seen it always that whatever we introduce, we introduce and do so in a very thorough way, such that we are able to build efficiency, trust, and transparency primarily. And of course, the ODR platform not only ensures all of this, but also security and fairness in the entire dispute resolution process. What are your thoughts? How did this entirely, win the admiration of the participants in the marketplace, and how has it taken off? How do you see this?
I end up looking at it as that really that the investors have embraced this entire platform and process is really the one which gives me the most confidence. I think all of us were watching with some amount of wait and expectation as to whether it will take time in taking roots. The good part is I don't think it's taken time at all. The kind of numbers that I sort of see on the Smart ODR dashboard tells me that the number of disputes with filed itself is more than 10,000. The number of or the value involved in disputes which has got resolved is greater than 500 crores. All of it is demonstrative that investors have adopted and sort of endorsed both the transparency and the fairness that operates. These are underpinned by MIIs and the ODR institutions that they have empaneled, I think, to a large degree. It comes to the professionalism of those involved in pre-conciliation, but also the conciliators and arbitrators. And as long as investors know that their voice is being heard, they know that it's being heard by a neutral who is coming to a conclusion, hearing both them and the intermediary. I think the principles of fairness get well established. Uh, Equally, the three-stage process is obviously also encouraging people to arrive at settlement or arrive at consensual resolution early on. If they can't, then indeed the arbitration as a binding principle sort of comes to play. The last part, which I again think has bolstered confidence, is that this is almost a self-contained mechanism for enforcing the awards that are also handed out. The intermediaries have to deposit whatever is the award claim amount with the MIIs, even pending an appeal if they want to go in appeal. But I think a lot of times people prefer to give the finality and respect the finality of the arbitrator's order, and whereby the investor gets compensated. So to me, that's been really the power of what Smart ODR has done and delivered in the short time of this existence.
One thing that stands out is, we practically had to not much get into capacity building as such to make people understand what this new framework is all about and how will it work, etc. People seem to have taken to this as if a fish takes to water, and does that come as a surprise to you?
I think people desire early and speedy resolution of issues. Again, Smart ODR and the conception of how we have done it is not to prevent them from going to the courts or consumer forums and so on. I think investors are best judges of what is working for them and what speed at which it works. I think Smart ODR is able to deliver that to them, the fairness, transparency that we mentioned, but also the speed. And then when they compare it to what is otherwise available as alternatives for them, I think this stands out in their mind. And which is why I think they have taken, as in your words, fish to water. And I'm very happy with that phrasing because I think it is a natural thing for people to expect a quick resolution and have that in their mind.
Absolutely. So the investors, from their perspective, obviously they've got something going for them in this mechanism, therefore they've taken to it. But what about your perspective, and what were your thought processes and your own objectives from a regulatory standpoint? Did you see any gap while introducing this? And if so, has that gap been addressed now?
I think we saw two or three, like I said, issues. One was the broader securities market and intermediaries following their own approaches on dispute resolution. Bringing uniformity there and bringing it within where there is an overview of probably a MII or probably the ODR institutions, I think was a key driver for us in extending it across. The second, I think, and indeed that's the professionalism which ODR institutions and their conciliators and arbitrators have brought. At some level, we are market participants, we are market institutions. We will have limited sight of what the principles underpinning conciliation is, or what's the principles of the law governing arbitration is. Getting those sets of experts with the ODR institutions, bringing them to the fore, has given us best of both worlds. That there is a market participants and institutions that can supply the knowledge of that, and these ODR institutions can bring the best of dispute resolution understanding and how things can get sorted. So I feel that that became the second sort of objective for us of saying that can we have good legal principles embedded with. I think the last, and at some level, I'm very happy that the Smart ODR has the dashboard. This disputes data dashboard is actually a real-time indicator of what's going on. And in a way, it gives us a heat map of where, which intermediaries are facing what kind of issues that have become disputes. It can even prompt relevant departments within SEBI to decide whether to intervene, whether to do further introspection or inspection of these intermediaries. And I think that's again a good objective for us. Earlier, we would have had to ask association by association or intermediary by intermediary the level of disputes that they were dealing with. Today, we know that this is almost a completely central repository of that information.
So, like you said, while it's very important for an investor in his investment journey to have a very quick and transparent grievance redressal mechanism, it's also important to have a transparent dispute data dashboard, which is today in place. Are there any more, areas in this that you would like to see happening, or are you already happy that the key milestones have been reached in decent time? And maybe you can also speak about some of the milestones that you had in mind.
So I think the key milestone, and many people will be surprised that our circular got issued on 31st of July and the ODR portal, Smart ODR, was ready on the next day. I think it speaks to the preparatory work that had gone in behind the scenes with the MIIs and SEBI in discussion with each other to seeing what to shape it. The first key milestone was, I think, August 16th, if I'm not wrong, of 2023, where each of the brokers and DPs got onboarded. And I think a month later was the timeline for the listed companies and other intermediaries to start getting on board. To me, these two milestones were very quickly met, and I think it speaks volumes to the discipline that the MIIs bring, and indeed the intermediaries have sort of displayed as well. And as we saw the matters take hold, the investors starting to bring their disputes and so on, it's been a real joy seeing the platform and the portal behave in the fashion that we had envisaged in all three layers that exist. Should we pause our ambitions here? Not at all. I think there are even more things for us to do with the Smart ODR. Today, I think we have reached a degree of stability. It's almost a year and a half from its launch. I think it's right time to sort of start thinking what more can be done. We've always anticipated integration of scores with Smart ODR. At some level, that is allowing the complaint and whatever information that got gathered up during the complaint process being directly ported into Smart ODR. I think that's something just on the anvil and should happen very soon. So I'm looking forward to that introduction. But when we think about anything digital, I think there are two or three more things. For instance, is language an issue, especially for investors? Could we therefore create where there are language models which allow us to have seamless interface, whether they speak in whichever language they are most comfortable with, and it translates for the benefit of the conciliator, or conciliators could be who are well versed in that language as well to hear and deal with that. And such that the records are still maintained in English. So this transcription and sort of translation and transcription of these conversations would be a wonderful thing to sort of see in the future. I think to me, introduction of chatbots for new users of Smart ODR might be another benefit, sort of just to guide, because it's not that investor has a dispute every day. It may be one odd thing in their long life as an investor. So at that point in time, for them to again be able to be guided through as to how to use this portal will be very useful. People with disabilities who are visually impaired, them being able to interact on the Smart ODR portal, I think again, all of these are things we should keep aspiring to and adding as features and functionality, such that maybe a year later when we have this chat, we should be saying what's next. And indeed, even in that what's next, the latest buzzwords of AI and ML might come to use. That are we able to look through the disputes and the resolution of them and see what can we proactively recommend to regulators or to intermediaries, saying if you do these things, maybe disputes won't arise itself, or we can nip them in the bud. So these are the potential, and to me, I guess the journey is just started with smart ODR. So I'm really looking forward to many of these things.
Oh, some of your words are like music to the ears. I must say that genuinely because it's great to see how diversity and inclusion are getting to be a part of the debate and discussion and preparation, and not just limiting ourselves to financial inclusion. So that's phenomenally good. But implementing any new mechanism always poses challenges, and there is some resistance to change. There's also a bit of compliance, integration issue here and there, some communication issues. Did any of those issues come in at all in the implementation of the smart ODR, or from what we have seen so far, it's been all very smooth?
I don't want to tell the audience that there were no challenges. I think there were challenges. There was points of resistance, but I think with good engagement and ability to sort of address people's concerns is why I think we could get the buy-in also that this was the right approach. Whether it was people who were erstwhile or earlier engaged with the MIIs as conciliators and arbitrators, whether it was the intermediaries who never had to be subjected to a MII administered process. I think each of it meant that we had to engage, we had to understand what their concerns were and sort of address it. I think we have done that. But again, these are all reiterative processes. There will be new concerns which will come, there will be new items to sort of deal with. The good part is, and I'm sure but also for the audience, SEBI remains a highly consultative body which will keep receiving and responding to information, as also setting the agenda for what we think should be the future roadmap, some of which I mentioned. But to me, these are processes where you cannot say that it's my way or the highway. I think you have to sort of broaden the piece so that everybody knows that it is their highway, and that highway can take us to the $5 trillion economy that you mentioned, which is our aspiration.
Absolutely. It is the highway that belongs to all of us, and we all have a responsibility in shaping this and making this better with each passing day. How do we see this platform, taking us to the next level in terms of, lessons learned from this entire experience being implemented in other projects and in other ideas when they get implemented?
So I think what we have demonstrated is that even though the market, securities market is so wide, having multiple number of participants, and I think the count of intermediaries itself in our market would be in excess of maybe 10,000 or 12,000 brokers, DPs, RIAs, and so on. That such a large ecosystem can be supported by a single portal with cooperation amongst all the MIIs and the empaneled ODR institutions. I think it can be an inspiration to many other sectors also. If I had to think about it, I don't know, but maybe in the insurance world, if there are healthcare providers and insurers and the insured who have issues to deal with, could such a system address them? I would believe why not? It should be capable and is capable of scaling like that. If we had to think about what is right now works in process, the DPDP Act being brought into force, disputes which are concerning data which may arise can again a smart ODR type of portal sort of get embedded there. Again, I think that potential also. So to me, anything and almost everything which is digital in nature starts to solve problems and remove barriers which existed in the physicality of life. As we grow into a digital economy, I think that is my other thing. Transactions we never thought about 5 years, 10 years ago are now everyday occurrences for us. Ordering on a Swiggy, Zomato, the quick commerce delivery. Some of it may result in disputes. And when they do, we cannot say we will go to the physical courts and sort of get issues resolved. So to me, that's the beauty and power of ODR, and that's the beauty and power of smart ODR. in being able to demonstrate that indeed this is scalable, this is capable and efficient. So,
I'm sure all stakeholders, whether it's the market infrastructure institutions or even the investors and users, other users of this entire framework, they might have some ideas in terms of how this can get better. Is there a way they can share this feedback through the online mechanism as well in terms of how this can be taken to the next level, and how do we plan to get that feedback and get working on it?
we remain open, like I said. People can write into us at SEBI. All of our mail IDs are on our website. Smart ODR itself, I think, as a portal, should have a login or have ability to accept feedback. I think that also is possible. We have an investor-facing website which SEBI has created. Again, comments or feedback or suggestions can also be piped in there. So, like I said, we are a very connected and digitally empowered world. I think people should access all of that. I think the other sort of thing which may be in the wings would be the minute we think of anything to change in our ODR mechanism. We will again issue a consultation paper. We will again invite feedback. People should use those opportunities also to pipe in what more they would like to see or what they would like to see differently from what's being done. So indeed, I think those will be further opportunities.
Wonderful to hear that, sir. Finally, your thoughts, sir. Anything, any messages that you want to convey to all the stakeholders about the importance of the online dispute resolution mechanism before we wind up this podcast?
I think, both for investors, but more importantly for the intermediaries. The trust is engendered by dealing with investor grievances, with investor issues as early as possible in the time that they arise. And yet, we can understand that people will have different perspectives, different takes on what happened, and so on. At some level, these need to have a finality of how they are closed up. I think we offer the scores model for people's grievances being aired and viewpoints being exchanged, information being exchanged. It may not lead to a conclusion. I think the smart ODR provides that ability to reach a conclusion, whether it is in the first two stages, which is more consensual, so people agree upon what is the resolution, and failing that, arbitrator who or a panel of arbitrator who decide on after hearing both the sides, providing a binding final conclusion. But it is underpinned by the fact that all of us have to believe the system is fair, transparent. We have a duty to make sure that it is visibly that also, as the adage goes, justice must not only be done, but seen to be done. I think that is the item that we need to all uphold ourselves to. And that would be my call to intermediaries, that please treat this with as much seriousness when investors raise issues. And for investors, that please raise what are indeed genuine difficulties, disputes that you have. When investors raise frivolous disputes or claims, it can again lead to where it is seen as an abuse or a misuse. So again, it's a message I would say to both sets, those who are investors and those who are intermediaries. But above all, like I said, I'm very pleased with how the MIIs have brought this to this level. So you have to keep your eyes on both these sets and indeed make sure that the ODR institutions and them, all of them do their roles and duties very well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. To all the listeners of the broadcast, that was Mr. Pramod Rao, Executive Director from SEBI, who has spared his valuable time for us to have this conversation today. This is very, very useful for all our listeners. I'm sure they're going to appreciate the fact that the online dispute resolution mechanism can bring so much more to the table. And the regulator has such an open mind and such exciting plans and thoughts for the future. Thank you all once again for your time to be part of this podcast. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.